All right, what's up, guys? It's 42DK, aka Jay, and I'm here with.
Allyson Hefner.
All right, so we're going to be talking a little bit about like everything in life. And to start off, so she works in the writing center at my school. So, what kind of got you started into that?
Well, I'm the coordinator of the Gaston College Writing Center, but I started working here going on 11 years ago, just as a writing tutor, what we call coaches. I have a degree in English with a concentration in creative writing. So I always knew I wanted to do something kind of in that realm. Never thought I wanted to teach though. Like speaking in front of a big group gives me a lot of anxiety. So I kind of just stumbled into tutoring, which is teaching, but one on one. So it suits me a lot better. Let me put my English skills to use, and I just really kind of fell in love with it. Here I am 10 years later, going on 11, and now I'm the boss.
So, what was it like over the 10 years, like kind of like, I guess, like climbing the food chain?
Well, no, it was more like becoming a coach, and then I was named the lead coach, which really didn't have any extra pay or benefits, just kind of a little more responsibility. But I like that. I like having responsibility. So I did the tutoring thing for like 10 years, and I just love it. I mean, no 2 days are ever the same. That's one of the things I love about this job. You just never know the conversations you're going to have, the different students you're going to interact with. It just makes for a really interesting and never boring job.
What do you think was like the most hardest thing coming into the job and then adapting to?
Honestly, just not knowing what the heck I was doing at first. I really didn't have any tutoring experience. I had worked for a newspaper, so I had experience with writing, but not critiquing other people's writing. I just kind of fell into it at the recommendation of somebody who used to work here and thought I might be a good fit. So I kind of had to learn a lot of it on the job. I basically watched a couple sessions and was told, okay, now you tutor. So a lot of it was just learning by hands-on, by doing, and then starting to build that competency and feeling like, okay, now I know what I'm doing, and then realizing, wow, I'm really helping these students. That's the best part of the job. Is just the rewarding feeling you get from knowing that you've helped somebody improve their grade, or even more importantly, just become a better writer.
Do you feel like when you're like tutoring and you're working more like one-on-one people, do you feel like outside of work that kind of like helps craft who you are in the real world, like in your personal life, like in a different aspect?
That's interesting. I've never really thought about that before. I mean, maybe. I think, any interaction we have with people can help us learn about ourselves. And I guess maybe it's helped me become a little more patient of a person in my personal life, because I feel like patience is not a virtue I was born with. It's not something that comes naturally to me. But when you're working with students, especially ones who are struggling with writing, you have to take it slow and be patient with them, or one or both of you could get frustrated. So maybe that is a skill that I have learned on this job that has helped me improve my interactions with people outside of this job.
I feel like writing is a form of art, and I feel like when you work with people and you're tutoring, you probably see like the brain is a beautiful thing. So you probably see how different people think, and it could probably open your life to like how you view different things in the world and like different aspects.
I can see that. I mean, you definitely hear a lot of different worldviews, working with different students from different backgrounds, and especially in a community college setting, because, we have students that run the gamut from 14 and 15-year-old early college students to I've worked with people in their 60s and 70s. So talk about being able to learn a lot from people, especially working with people who are older than me, which I'm in my mid 40s. So working with people in their 60s and 70s, they have a perspective that I'm not even accustomed to. So you kind of get it from every angle, people that are much younger, people that are much older. So it's really interesting, learning about different people's worldviews, perspectives on life.
So when you're tutoring, what is it like? Like, do you have a lot of challenging days, or is it more kind of like chill, like going with the flow?
It really just depends on the day, man. I mean, there's days, especially like near exam times, when we get really, really busy, and you might tutor back to back for like the entire day. So by the end of it, you feel a little brain dead. But boy, the day sure went by fast. And then on slower days, you really do have more time to process things, and take more time with sessions, things like that. But like I said earlier, that's one of the things I love about this job, that no 2 days are ever the same. I like the variety. I don't think I would be happy working at a job where I feel like I'm living Groundhog's Day, like every day over and over again, the same routine. Job is the opposite of that, and I love it.
I feel like when you're working and you're doing that, it's kind of like, so I've worked in the food industry, retail. I'm like a manager now. So I feel like my life has more creativity, seeing different people and the personalities, because you're more open to different personalities, nationalities, perspectives, and like you may think your life is slow, but then you realize maybe you're going really, really fast. And when you sit down and you talk to other people's papers or work, it's like you see their story and their own words on paper.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes you do get that experience. You certainly will learn a lot about people. I mean, depending on the assignment, you know, some academic assignments are pretty dry. There's not a lot of room to express personality or to tell anything about your life, but sometimes we read narrative papers. So the assignment has just been to write a story about like something that impacted your life, something you went through, and wow, you can really learn a lot. Some students are very brave to express things that they've been through in a paper that they know is going to be read not just by a tutor but by their instructor and maybe some of their classmates if they do like a peer review kind of situation. Other students are understandably, I think, very very shy to get into to personal things like that. But again, it's another part of the variety. Like it runs the gamut. I mean, I've read papers on every topic you can think of, telling every story about someone's life you can imagine. Like some of them made me cry, some of them made me laugh, some of them made me just I can't believe that really happened to you. But it really is a great way to learn more about people. And like you said, diverse perspectives. We have a very, I think, diverse student population here at Gaston, which I really love. I love interacting with people from different cultures and learning from them and teaching them as well.
So what is it like for you when you have like a new student and like open it up? Like when I was serving, I tell people you go from being a stranger to being their best friend to being like a family member to like saying, all right, see you later. And then,
I totally get that. I feel like I do develop one of my strengths. I think as a tutor is developing rapport with students and developing those one-on-one relationships. You know, sometimes they come in the first time and they're very nervous. They've never had tutoring before. They don't know what to expect. They feel like they're going to be judged or something. But by the end of the session, we're just chatting like old pals, like you said to me. You just they start out as a stranger or just a student they're going to tutor, and you develop this bond with them. I have students that I haven't tutored for years that are long graduated from here that I still keep in touch with. I won't be Facebook friends with a student until they're not working with me anymore. But once they've graduated, if we have that foundational friendship, we can become friends and we can continue to be friends. I love that. I love building those relationships. That's one of my favorite parts of the job. Is just I love people. So this job's a great fit for me.
have you ever like tutored somebody like in the past over the 10 years and then next thing you know they have like maybe they're like an author like unattaught or something like they're big time.
Maybe not quite that experience, but I've definitely worked with students who told me where they were transferring to and just blew me away. This one kid I always remember, I was helping him with, I think it was a transfer or a scholarship essay, and he was transferring to Johns Hopkins, which is a very prestigious hospital and medical college, to become a neurosurgeon. And he started right here at Gaston. So it's so cool to see like what the student's next steps are. Like I love that, and he's just the one example that sticks out to me because it was such an extreme. I mean, you just don't. Probably not a lot of people from this area would go to that school at all, you know. So knowing that he's starting here at a community college and coming to my little old writing center and getting tutoring, and that was years ago. Now he's probably well into medical school, maybe doing his residency or something, if he continued to pursue that, which I hope he did. But I see potential in just about every student I work with, and I wish I could follow all their stories. Like that's one of the things that is tough about this job is they always end up graduating or leaving, mostly graduating though, which is good. And sometimes you wonder, well, I wonder what ever happened to little Johnny from 3 years ago. Like you wonder if they ended up following the path that they told you they were going to follow, or something else came up. The ones you keep in touch with, great, but there's for every one of those, there's many many others that you'll never see again.
Have you ever like tutored somebody and like you go to like help them and you realize like you don't see nothing to improve, but then you get like puzzled, but you don't want to tell them that. So it's like, what do you do in that situation?
All right, I'm gonna say no. Like even the most accomplished professional writers need somebody else to look at their work. Like they're without exception. Even like a Stephen King has an editor. So and the more when a student comes in and says something like to the effect of this paper is perfect, it doesn't need any help, that's a challenge to me. It's got to need something, and it always does. So even me who's considered an expert on writing, if I were going to write something to be submitted in any way, whether it was for publishing, for a class, or even if I just wanted to send a very professional sounding email, I would have someone read it for me, because you're always going to skim over things that someone else will catch. in your own writing. So everyone needs minimum a proofreader.
That's like I think it's a scientific study where you can take a word and you can take out only like the vowels, and you can like your brain will put it together. So it's
Yeah.
kind of like you already know what you're gonna say, so you're gonna read it normal. So then when
Yeah.
somebody else reads it, it's new to them, so they're gonna actually pick it up.
That's funny. And you know, that actually happens to me reading student papers too when I haven't even seen it. Sometimes, if there's an error, my eye will see what I think should be there. And I'll read it that way. And the student will be like, oh, hold on, you just said this. And I look, I'm like, oh, that's not what it says. That's what it should say. So it's funny, like, my brain is so used to, I guess, knowing what should be correct in writing that sometimes I even see it correct when it's not correct. I don't know. That's a weird phenomenon.
And then it's a book I'm actually working on reading about owning your own mind by like Napoleon Hill, and he talks about him and like this other dude like Carnage, where they have a conversation, and they talk about the mind. You have like synthetic and creative like vision. So they talk about inventors, even Edison when he did the light bulb. Charcoal was made with like wood and dirt, and then like you burn it, and a fire you need like oxygen, no oxygen to keep the fire burning. So then, after 10,000 tries, his brain went from the basics, what everybody knows, to like sometimes your brain will have this whole illusion, and he solved the problem without having to experiment, and he knew that he would have it. Same thing with like the T-Mobile and the whole thing with like the cars, automobiles. All of them would do like everyone has this, and it's also another saying where it says um, something about under the sun has already been here. Because if you think about it, everything in life we could invent something new, but we don't really invent something new. We just change the order of how it's formed.
Right. That makes sense. Like I think it's true in science. Matter cannot be created or destroyed. Something like that. Yeah. I mean, I feel like all we can do now is just innovate and advance with what we have. But new scientific discoveries do get made every day. But you're right; they're based on old ones.
That's how writing is in a way. Because
Yeah.
if you think about it, your writing's still the same, but then all you do is help people change the order they write it.
Sometimes, I mean, sometimes organization, can be an issue, but sometimes, the way that they have something phrased, you have to try to make them suggest something else. Like sometimes I can tell what a student means, but the way that it's written is not the best way to say it. And so I try to ask them questions to try to lead them toward a better way of saying, getting their same point across, but just saying it in a way that fits better in an academic essay. Yeah.
What would you say is like your favorite story you've read? Like, was it a student story? Was it academic where they were doing an essay on it?
Well, we don't really read. I mean, aside from the narrative essays, like that's the closest that we would do to creative writing. So Gaston doesn't offer creative writing classes, so we don't really see that kind of writing too often. The narratives are about the only time that we get a chance for that. So, yeah, I don't know. I wish I got to read students' creative writing. It's just not part of what we do because there's not classes in it, and we can only read stuff that's for Gaston classes, which is more typically academic essays, which I don't want to say they're the opposite of creative writing, but they're definitely different. You can't take as many liberties. You can't use slang. You have to just keep the language much more formal. So most of what we read falls under that category rather than anything creative, which I accept. But sometimes I do wish, that I could read more students' creative writing because that interests me.
I only got to have one, but as like a student, I think my favorite writing, besides the narrative, is when I have to pick a topic and I have to argue it because it's kind of like it's something I'm the least interested in, so it kind of can relate to me, but it's not fully me.
Do you find though that when you're assigned to write something where you have more freedom to choose your own topic and you can choose something that interests you, do you feel like that makes the writing better when it's something that you either have a passion or at least an interest in?
To an extent, yes or no, but sometimes like my mind's racing. I want to say a lot, but it's like the best way to say it. And that's like I'm working on writing 3 novels right now. So I'll take some things that I learned from the writing center from another girl. You don't say can't, you put cannot. Like you spell
Exactly.
that out. And that was like one thing I'll always do. So then I'll like proofread my own writing, and then I'll print off a sheet, and then I'll take it back to like 4th grade. So I'll take a pen, I'll highlight different stuff, and then I retype it. And then
Okay. No, that sounds like a good method. Now, when you're doing creative writing, you can use contractions. That's the example you're giving is saying cannot versus can't. That's one of the differences between creative writing and academic. In academic, you shouldn't use contractions. In creative writing, you have the freedom to write more like people talk, like especially if you're writing dialogue. People do not speak like the Queen of England, like I'm trying to speak now. We use contractions. We would say don't instead of do not. So to make writing seem more natural, especially dialogue, you would want to use contractions because you would want to write how actually people speak. When it comes to academic writing, what I tell people is don't write as you speak, because that's what leads to the use of slang and contractions and stuff like that. But to kind of answer for you the question I asked you, when I work with students and they've got to pick their own topic, I almost always find that the writing is better because when people are writing about something that they're interested in, rather than something that they might have zero interest in but were forced to write about, their writing's better because they just get more into it. It's easier to enjoy writing and to feel motivated to do it when you're writing about something that interests you. So I like those type of assignments where the instructors at least have some freedom in there for the student to make some element of choice.
I do like that, but also, so when I'm given a choice, I'll find a topic that I somewhat like, or if it's an argument, I'll find, okay, I like this topic, but what do I not know? Because, like, I like to learn something new and challenge myself. So if they say, about sports, write about sports, I'm going to sit down a whole nother day and find something I don't know. Like, if I don't read this book or I don't know how, like, carpentry works, I'm going to do a whole paper on that.
That's interesting. So you have, like, a real intellectual curiosity. You
Yeah, I'm
want to
very curious.
learn. That's a great quality to have, especially when you're a student. Not everybody has that, like, desire to learn about things. I feel like I have that, too. Like, I'm really bad to Google something and then go down a rabbit hole, and the next thing I know, it's been 30 minutes and I've read, like, 10 different things about this topic. But yeah, when something sparks my interest, I'm the same way. I want to learn as much as I can and different angles of it, different aspects that I didn't know. I just find things fascinating. And when something's fascinating, I want to learn as much as possible.
That's like, I had American history last semester. Now, I didn't do the best, but I also didn't do bad in it. But certain stuff that I can't, like, ace on a test, literally earlier today, I was talking to a guy on campus, and he went to Washington, D.C. I went there when I was in 6th grade. So I brought that up, and then we started talking about, like, the presidents, which ones were here, different stuff, and then we started talking about, like, inventions like Thomas Edison, told him the same thing. And I'm not a big reader, but I'll read, like, a little bit, and I try to, like, break it up. So for this week, my goal is to read 8 to 9 pages. But if I read that in a week, I'll have the first section of the first chapter done, and then the reflection I'll do the next week. So it's still fresh. And
You sound like you're really good at organizing, like planning out how you're going to do things, which I'm the same way. I'm a big planner. Like, if I'm not making a to-do list, something's wrong. So I really respect that. I like organizational skills. I think is another, in addition to intellectual curiosity, a really great quality to have when you're a student, for sure.
do you feel like when you're reading, like, all these papers, it's kind of like a trivia game? Because, like, you got to help them within, like, a certain spot. Like, you have, like, an hour or 30 minutes, but you got to find out information to help them, but you may not know it.
Yeah, sometimes. Like when a student first comes in, one of the first things we have to find out is, well, what's the assignment? Like, what are the instructions in the prompt from the instructor? So we have them look on their blackboard usually, because if you don't know what they're working on, you can't just take a stab in the dark. You can't give them the best help if you don't know how long the paper's supposed to be. Is it supposed to have sources? Any formatting concerns? Just what exactly are they supposed to be writing about? So yeah, I mean, it kind of is like a bit of a game because you have a limited time to find out the information you need to help them, and then the clock really starts when you're reading through the paper. Especially if it's a long one. Boy, and you've got, say you have 30 minutes on like a 4-page paper, that's pretty difficult to get through in 30 minutes. So you really have to understand how to manage your time well.
So what advice would you give, like, a new student who's trying to, like, manage their time and, like, pick a topic for a paper?
So as far as managing time, I mean, I guess you just have to get into the habit of doing that. There's no magic formula, I don't think, for getting good at time management. You just have to accept that it's something that you have to work on and actually commit to working on it. Like, I love to make to-do lists. If I had like a day where I really had to manage my time, I might like make my to-do list and break it down by time periods. Like, this part of the day I have to do this, then I have this and this and this. So really being extremely organized, is key. And what was the other thing? Like picking a paper topic?
Yeah, like, they had to, like, pick any topic, like, it could be academic or narrative, but, like, they have to pick a topic they don't know about. What's the best way going about that in, like, such a short time?
Yeah, if it's just totally wide open like that, like pick whatever topic you want to research and then make an argument about something like that, I would ask them, what are you interested in? I think that would be a good starting point. what are you interested in, or what is something that you're interested in but don't know anything about and would like to learn more about. Because that having that interest in the topic to me, if it's wide open for you to choose, I would never tell them to choose something they completely don't care about at all, because they're going to learn pretty quickly that they're bored doing the research. They just can't get into it. And if it's something that at least there's a spark of interest in, then probably they're going to be a lot more successful in writing that paper.
I know for me, sometimes like the way scientific writing is kind of like bland to me. So I'll watch like any article I can find, if I can find it in a TED Talk, as well as like I did one on nature, so I use National Geographic. Therefore, like nowadays society likes to watch YouTube, and their attention span is a whole lot smaller.
Yeah.
So being like a visual person, I feel like if you can find a YouTube that has the same article as well, but they also talk about it, it's a whole lot easier.
Yeah, I don't disagree with that. Scientific articles especially can be very, very difficult to read. They're written for an audience that is not necessarily a student. They're written for other people in that field. And so it can be very difficult to decipher some of those things. Sometimes we still have to, though. Like if the instructor's requiring, certain rules for the sources, you might have to use those kind of articles. My advice in that case is to read the abstract or any kind of summary that's provided first, because that's going to give you an idea of if you even have to dig further in. You're going to know pretty quickly if it's going to work for your paper, or at least have an idea that it could work. And then, like, I would never tell a student you have to read every single word of a 20 page long, very scientific article. Like, skim through it. Find the key parts that seem to back up what you're saying, and then go with that. Don't feel like you have to read through the whole thing, because you're going to end up like me when I'm reading something like that, reading the same sentence 3 or 4 times, and then realizing, what am I doing? So there's definitely tricks where you can try to gauge if an article is going to be useful to you as a source. But I don't hate your idea. Like if there's an audio version, especially something that's going to provide more explanation than just the printed page will, not a bad idea. Just always make sure it's credible. Like it can't just be some guy with a blog, because that's probably not a credible source. So always try to verify the credibility of your source, whether it's an article from a journal or a video.
So I grew up in private school a lot. So about after 6th grade, I went to like public school. But one of my teachers, she had us, so you would read a paragraph, or you could extend it to 2, but you would read a paragraph and then you take notes on it and you reflect on it. So like even now when I read other books, I'll read a couple of paragraphs and then I take notes and reflect, and then like sum it up in my own words. Therefore, you're more likely to like memorize it.
Totally agree. We have a workshop in the writing center about note taking, and that's one of the things that we talk about is writing. How just the very act of writing notes with you in your handwriting, holding the pen in your hand, is a start of memorization. So I really think that is a good strategy to use. One thing I'll mention too, going back to what I was saying about determining if an article is good, with so many things being online, one thing I think comes in handy is doing a Control F search, so you can search for a key word in an article and see how many times that word's in there, and you can just click through them and see the references that probably will match up with the information you're looking for. So that's a really handy trick when you don't have a printed copy that you can annotate or highlight. Do a Control F, and it'll let you search the whole document. That's a great tool for an electronic article.
See, I've never been told that before. But I've did like similar things like emails in my job. We can click on PDFs, and apparently you can do the same thing. You click on PDFs and you hit the Control F and you can like type it in.
Yeah, Control F is amazing. It works on web pages. It works on a Word doc. It would work on a PDF also. So yeah, anytime you're searching for something, don't worry about scroll, read. Control F, it'll just take you right to it. Love that trick. I love keyboard shortcuts too. Any kind of keyboard shortcut, I'm just a fanatic for. I'm such a dork.
So outside of like school, so you're probably typing on the paper, like typing a lot in your computer. Do you ever because at the end of the day, I saw like a video where they said, even though as you get older, you still have the other you as you grow up, like when you turn 20, when you turn 30, you're gonna have all this in you. Do you feel like if you play video games when you're younger, do you feel like you still go back and do that, like on mouse and keyboard now?
Well, I've never really played video games, so it's just never really been my thing. So yeah, I mean, when I was a kid, what did I do? I mean, I played with dolls when I was a very little kid. Or
you had handball too.
I've always loved. I wasn't athletic either. I don't know. I'm trying to think what I did. I've always loved board games, like board games and card games. Those are more the kind of games I would gravitate toward than video games. Um,
Have
love
you
those kind of things.
have you ever played with the Jacob's Ladder? I used to play that all the time.
I know what it is, but I've never played it.
Have you ever did like you have like the yarn and the string? I'm trying to think. You have like you do like a saucer, a teacup.
Like knitting or crocheting something.
It's like you have like a band and you like tie it in your hands.
Oh,
And
no,
I forgot what
I've
you call it.
never done that either. And we used to make friendship bracelets. That was a thing we did where you would just buy this thread and like different colors and you'd like braid it together in different ways. That was a thing from my generation, was making friendship bracelets like that.
We used to do that at my other school. We used to do that, and then the loom bands kind of like took
Yeah.
over.
Yeah, a couple of Christmases ago, my fiance's, I guess, niece had one of those she got for Christmas with the loom, and she was trying to get me to help her like learn how to use it, and I couldn't understand it at all. Like I'm looking at the instructions, I'm looking at this thing, and I was like, "Honey, I'm so sorry. I don't know how to do this." I mean, I don't consider myself not artistic, but I'm much more like verbally. Like I'm great with words. Visual stuff, like I couldn't draw a stick figure and make it look decent. You know? I'm just not artistic in that way, unfortunately. I wish I was.
Have you ever like stood up and did I forgot where they call it, but you go to like a place, you stand up in front of a group of people, you read like a poem or say something. I forgot what you call them.
It could be like a poetry reading, something like that. Open mic nights, sometimes
Yeah.
they call them. Yeah, I've never done that. I've definitely read my poetry in other contexts, though. I have entered my poetry and short stories in contests we have in Lincoln County, where I'm from, and won it a couple times. So I've had to do readings when I won those. Now I judge that contest, though, because I won it a couple times, and then I was like, if you want a new judge for this, I can do that. So that I do that now. But the most public speaking that I do now is I have a little side gig. I have a trivia business where I host trivia at a brewery. That's the only gig I have right now, but it is a business where my intention is to host other places. But that's really gotten me used to public speaking, is having to, you always have to be on. I mean, it's almost like acting in a way. Like you're on the mic, you're asking the questions, but you're also trying to crack jokes and keep people entertained. That has really helped me become more comfortable with public speaking, which was always something I hated and dreaded before. I mean, I still don't love it, but being a trivia host has really helped me hone that skill and feel more comfortable.
So you would say like being trivia helped you like more like on the improv side of like in front of a mic.
Definitely, yeah. Because I'm really glad you said that, because I would say that before, what made me so nervous was the spontaneity of having to speak. Like if I was reading from a script, or I used to do theater in high school, like I have lines memorized, that's different. But when you have to speak completely off the top of your head, that is very nerve-wracking. And so hosting trivia, I'm not completely off the top of my head. I've got my questions, and I kind of have my whole spiel. I always go through the same thing at the beginning. But of course, as I'm going, I mean, I think of things off the top of my head to like crack a joke or play off, something that somebody else said. So it really does keep you on your toes. That's for sure.
I feel like for me, it's kind of reversed. I feel like it's easier to do more than improv and just go without a script than like when I have a script, I feel like I'm being rushed. I have like all this stuff I gotta like cram it into one thing. And it's like,
Yeah, I can understand that. That's very brave of you, though, because I felt like, doing a play where you have lines memorized, or, giving a speech where you have notes, it's kind of a safety net. When you're having to go out there and it's just you and whatever's coming on in your brain at that moment, you don't have a safety net. You're like walking that tightrope and there's nothing but air below you. So that can be really nerve-wracking. So to hear you say that you prefer that impresses me, because I don't think that's typical. I think most people would rather have a script every day of the week.
I actually have later I have to go on a Zoom and have an audition for like this modeling acting thing, and it's like a small script and it's very small, but like for me it's like, how do I say that or saying it the wrong way? But then I feel like when you're improv, it's no really right or wrong as long as you just let it go. Like I'll tell people nothing's wrong, like nothing's weird as long as you don't make it weird. Like if you say something weird, the way you play it off, that's the whole part of improv. So if you just play it off like it's normal, or if something is weird, you draw attention to it to make people laugh or get it. Therefore, it don't seem as weird.
Yeah, that's true. Have you ever taken an improv class?
I've never taken any improv or acting. I'm actually Adobe certified, and now I'm in school for like kinesiology, so more like science-based. But anything that I do outside of school, I never studied.
If you ever get a chance to take an improv class, I would recommend it. I took a brief one at a summer camp I went to like back when I was in middle or high school, so it's been a while. But I've always remembered it was really fun, and I was decent at it, because you're put on the spot. Like, you're going to go one of two directions. You're either going to shut down or you're going to come up with something brilliant. And luckily for me, that time at least, I came up with something brilliant. But I've also read about improv, and one of the keys is always say yes. Like, if somebody else creates a scenario and they ask you a question and you answer in the negative, it kind of shuts down that pathway for them to continue down into actually creating like a sketch out of it or whatever. So when you're doing improv, you have to be open to suggest to whatever the other person suggests. Even if you don't know where it's going, you just kind of have to go with it. Otherwise, it just creates like a roadblock.
So
It's about openness.
So especially with me doing music, I tell people improv is like, even when I do songs, I don't really write it. So I improv everything in a way, and improv is like a form of creativity. So like you said, say yes. You can expand stuff, and I tell people it's not always what you say, it's how you say it. That's like someone could say something, and the way they say it, you believe it, so you don't ask questions. So if you do that, it's the same thing. Like if you're improving, you can act the whole show. Everyone will believe the story because you just believe what you say and like the way you perceive it.
Now, I totally get that. The way that someone presents themselves and comes across either lends itself to credibility or not credibility. And yeah, I mean, you can really convince people with you sound convincing. Like there's a phrase I love called "fake it till you make it."
That's one of my favorites.
It's one of my favorites too, because to me it means if you're not feeling confident in that moment, it doesn't matter what you're feeling inside. It's what you project to the people watching you. If you project confidence, people will think you're confident, and it becomes contagious for you, and you will grow that confidence. So I've always had to do that, like in many scenarios in life, until I actually was like, oh, now I do feel comfortable with this. So, but fake it till you make it is a great strategy for to kind of calm those nerves. You just pretend that you believe in yourself, pretend that you're confident, and the audience is not going to know the difference.
I feel like, so with my little niece, I feel like that comes in play with having kids. For example, if you're scared in a moment, they look up to you. So if you fake it till you make it in that situation where you just act like everything's okay and just figure out a way to get it handled and you just try to stay calm, your kid can stay calm, and them being calm could actually, whether you realize it or not, calm you down and motivate you. So that therefore, you faking it till you make it helps them stay calm, which helps you stay calm, and then just ease the whole situation down.
Totally agree. That was a great example of that, especially, with young children that are so going to be influenced by what you do and say. They are looking up to you for guidance. So, yeah, I feel like that's great advice.
So back to the trivia thing. So how did that all start?
Okay, so I've started playing trivia back in 2012, and I just got addicted to it, like pub trivia, where you go and you have a team and you're competing against these other teams. And I had a pretty successful team and just kind of fell in love with playing it. And then, so I was married at the time, and my ex-husband started running a bar, and he started hosting trivia there, and then eventually asked me to do it. And I was very reluctant because, like I told you earlier, I'm not a fan of public speaking, but he needed a favor, and we were married at the time, so I said, okay, I'll do it. And it took me a while, but I really, really grew to love it and feel like I'm pretty decent at it. So even when I ended up, not being married to him anymore and not hosting at that bar, I got this other gig at a place in Lincoln where I live, and it's just become a huge success. I originally intended to have multiple gigs. Like I wanted to try to do this more than just one place, but now I'm working full-time here at the college, so one is enough for now. But my business is called Smarty Pants Trivia, and I just fell in love with it. It's a true passion. Tutoring and hosting trivia are the two things in life I feel that I'm the best at and that I have the most passion for.
Do you feel, so with your own business, like, do you handle everything more yourself hands-on, or?
Oh, yeah, I do everything now. It's a very small business. I don't have anybody working for me or anything. It's just me. And like I said, I only have the one gig. So it's pretty simple right now. But, yeah, there's so many things you have to think about when you have your own business, like from the taxes to how you're going to promote it. Just a lot of things that I had to figure out. And of course, I started it in January of 2020, not knowing that there was about to be a global pandemic that was going to keep me from being able to grow that business. But that's what happened. So it was really slow at first. And then once I got that one gig, I just do it every Thursday night there, and it's just worked out great. Someday, maybe, pie in the sky dream, I'd like to actually be able to make a career, out of doing more than just one gig. I always like to keep tutoring as well, but I just love it. Like, I don't know, when Jeopardy was looking for a new host, I was jokingly like, hey, they should call me. I'll go host Jeopardy because I just love doing it. I have a real passion for it, and it's a heck of a lot of fun too. Believe me, writing the questions is the hard part. That's the time consuming hard part. The hosting part is fun. It really is.
Have you ever thought about like, since you're talking about doing a career, say say you get home and you know you're gonna go to bed at like 11 o'clock, but you know between 9 and 10 you're not doing anything. Have you ever thought about doing like a 15-minute or a 30-minute live where you go live every day, or say when you do host an event, you have someone stream it. So people who can't make it, they can't like answer in person, but they can still follow along. So then like more people start doing online, and then you could have like online versions where you have like a survey, like Survey Monkey, and you have them submit different answers, and then they submit it 5 minutes before the thing. You go live, and then the people who answer it, you'd be like, you got this right, and they can like tally it themselves. And then you could also like, say you have a friend who goes with you, or you have someone who wins like every night. You talk to them about it. They follow up under you. They done did trivia. They know what it's like. So then you do other gigs and say someone pay you $100 for like a 15-minute trivia. Well, you keep 25 and you pay them 75. So you still get money. They have your name on it, and then they go and do trivia. So it like expands your business. Next thing you know, you have like a whole company.
I mean, I've thought sort of along those lines, especially because when, like I said, I started it right before COVID, and I did end up doing some online live events like that. I think I did one or two through Facebook Live. Now, that was a terrible experience, honestly, because I was very unprepared and I just didn't know what I was doing. Now I think it would be more successful. But yeah, I mean, if I found the time, trying to expand it in the way that you're saying would not be a bad way to go. It really would be, to kind of bring that online component into it. It's just right now, between working full time and planning a wedding, because I'm getting married next year. It's just, there's too much on my plate. But I like that idea, and I'm gonna keep that in my back pocket for a time when I actually do have time to devote more to my business and growing it.
That's like more up my alley, because a lot of people will come to me about like, so my mind's like very creative. You can name anything, even if it's not invented, and like my mind just do sparks, and I see like 1,000 computer tabs at like once, and I can just like put it all together.
That's a really good skill to have. Some people would be overwhelmed by that, but it sounds like you're really good at like compartmentalizing things.
Well, for me, it's like I tell people, my brain, I feel like I could feel sad, I could feel happy, I could be thinking, like I can rest my brain in like different spaces at the same time, and then like I can feel this emotion, but then I can also be like, okay, I need to talk more on this side. So I still have this here, I just don't show it, but it's still there.
Wow, so you're really good at emotional control then.
Yeah.
Yeah, and not everybody is. That's not a skill that everyone has. So that's really impressive that you're able to do that.
But I wasn't always like allowed to show it, and then you play like sports or whatever, and then I had like military parents and stuff like that. So it's like certain stuff they just like, I'll just push it off or whatever.
Yeah.
So you kind of get used to like, and then not everybody has the best intentions in the world. So it's like, you gotta watch how you.
Yeah.
After a while, you gotta realize, okay, this I gotta just separate. It's still there, but it's like just for like safety first. So
No, that's a really smart way to look at it. That impresses me, especially because you're a lot younger than me. So the fact that you're already thinking along those lines, that's a good thing.
and another thing I'll tell people is like, kind of like writing can help or whatever. But then say like when I was younger, I had someone take my writing and read it out loud. So then that kind of like made me stop writing. So I wouldn't write stuff down, or I'll dispose of it because I didn't want people to find it. But then like it's also good to write, even if you write and dispose it. I would say for people, like you could write a paper, don't have to be for school. That can help like students find themselves. And I told another staff member, it's kind of like a bottle of water. Like pretend the bottle of water can melt. You put the bottle of water on a stove, you turn on the heat. Well, if you don't let it out, the cap is gonna hold all that air, and eventually it's just gonna bust. But if you just take the cap off, the water can still heat up and it will just flow out. Like it's not gonna bust. You just vent it a little bit, so it's good to write, and you can still move on with your life, but still let everything go.
I totally agree. Like what you're talking about, I would call journaling. Keeping a journal is a great way to kind of process your own thoughts. Like you said, like that analogy was really good, because when we bottle things in, eventually they will explode. You can't keep things in forever. But having a journal, it's almost like having someone to talk to just to get those thoughts out, but you're never going to show it to anyone. It's just for you. Like you said, even if you'd end up destroying it, the thoughts are out there. It served its purpose. But I recently discovered on my phone there's a new app that's like a journaling app on the iPhone, the latest update. So I've actually started keeping a journal on my phone, and it's super secure because you have to have my passcode to unlock it. So if you have a phone that has that app on it, it's a pretty handy thing, especially for like total privacy. Because yeah, like you said, I wouldn't want someone to find my writings and read them out loud. That's very intrusive and inappropriate. Whoever
Well, I
did
was in
that.
daycare too, so it was like I was.
So
Really
you were
young.
really little.
Yeah. So after that, I kind of like stopped, and I would still write. But now, like, what I did is like I have like mixed emotions on like love, for example. So I compared it to a volcano, and I wrote a whole poem. So it sounds like a poem resembling a volcano. But then also, it's also how I feel about love. But most people's like, oh, he related volcano to an emotion. But for me, it's like when I read it, I don't see it as that. I see it's like love can either break something or it can heal someone, or it can heal yourself. And then at the same time, it's like it's a lot of people. Like if you want to give love to a world, it's a lot of people you can see, but at the same time, you can't reach them. And it's like a volcano, because a volcano, whatever it can see, like it can see for miles and miles and miles. It just keeps going around the world. Yet when it explodes, it doesn't always reach people.
Yeah, that's true. Its reach is limited.
So it's like it loves from a distance. And I compared it to a volcano.
That sounds really poetic too. Like, I dig that. That's a pretty good metaphor that you found there. Do you still write poetry now?
I actually wrote that poem about like a week or two ago.
Oh, okay. So this is recent. Okay.
Yeah, I was like near this room and I just like wrote it.
Yeah.
And then I think I have it in my car. But I wrote it. I showed a couple people, but typically I'll write poems and then I just like trash it.
Well, is it because you decide you don't like it, or it's just wasn't important to you?
I can always like I tell people like even as a music artist, it's not good to have your music leak. But like if someone does leak my music, it's not gonna sound the same if they try to copy it.
Yeah.
Because it's not them. But then another thing, like when I go to make music, I don't care about the beat, because it's not about the beat. It's like what I want to say. I'm gonna say it regardless. So any type of beat, any type of flow, it's still gonna be my story, and your story is always gonna be identical.
Yeah, that's an interesting way to look at it. Yeah, so as someone who likes to write things, do you kind of always try to have a pen and paper on you in case you have an idea so you don't forget it?
So this happens a lot with like a lot of music artists. So like if any music artists are watching this, they can agree. You get literally like you be getting ready, putting on clothes, folding clothes in the shower, or like you could put your book bag in the car, so it's already ready. And then you have an idea and you say it to your head multiple times, but by the time you go to write it, it's gone.
Yeah.
So then you try to like remember it or whatever. And sometimes I just get to the point where it's like I realize that's where it is, and then sometimes I'll say something, and sometimes if I can, I'll just take a video. And in a video, like my cousin, he takes a picture, a blank picture, and he writes on it and save it. Me, I'll take an audio. Like I'll just say it off my head and I'll put in an audio, like audio file, or I take a video and I just talk into my phone.
That's really smart. See, I'm an old person, so I'm like still pen and paper. So I was realizing that I was having my best ideas for trivia questions at times where I was sitting like on my couch and I just didn't have anything to write with. So I have a pad of Post-it notes and a pen that is literally right there. So if I'm watching TV and a character says something, or if I'm watching Jeopardy and there's a great question on there, I jot it down, because if I don't, it will be gone. And then for the rest of the night, I'm like, I knew I had a great idea for trivia, but I just can't remember it. And it would drive me crazy. Now, my next step, because I also have great ideas in the shower, I would like to get a dry erase board and put it on the far end of my shower away from the water. And so that if I have ideas in there, I can write them on the dry erase board.
You could do so. I had this idea a while back. I'm not sure if I actually did it, but so you could take your phone if you want, but you could put something like the thing you hang up on your shower where you can hold like bars of soap.
Yeah.
You could have it like that. You could have your phone, and you could literally just go to voice memos, and you could press it and put your phone inside a Ziploc bag and like close it up and set it right there. So whatever you're thinking in the shower, you could just edit the other stuff out, and you can literally keep. So then you'd be like, oh, I said something. Once you get out of the shower, you just play it back and you write it down.
See, you take my decent idea and you move it into a better idea for the digital age. I like that. That's even better than my dry erase idea. I was just keeping it very old school.
But it was also going to be kind of hard with dry erase, because you got to think when you have a chalkboard and you can't erase with it, you go get water. When you have some, like, say someone puts a Sharpie on a dry erase marker, if you can't get it off, you go get water and you put something wet. So at the same time, all the steam and all that could like mess up the marker when you're trying to write and stuff.
And with my luck, it probably would. Like, I would have this brilliant idea, I would finish showering, and I would look at it like, it's gone. No, you're right. The voice memo thing makes a lot more sense.
Now the only thing about my idea though is like, my phone is like never charged, or it's charged, but when I need it, it's not, or it dies, or something happens, or sometimes like you say, have an idea. I'll record in the studio. Sometimes I record on my phone. Like I'll go in the car. Like I've did it in a closet. I've literally went inside of a bathroom at my dad's house, opened the little drawers under the sink, and I literally sat under there just to get a certain echo effect. Because I knew that if I hear that echo effect when I talk, it would give me an idea to put effect and I actually record the song.
That was smart. Well, you really, I like the way your mind works. You cover so much ground with the way you think of. I feel like you come at things from different angles and try to like be very thorough with the way you think things through. I like that.
I feel like I got that more back in like ninth grade because I had like this head injury and then I lost my vision for a little bit. So I had to go to vision therapy. And then afterwards, it was like all the different stuff for 6 months. I couldn't like listen to TV. I couldn't read because they said it was conditioned of effort. So everything your brain does is going to operate was actually going to make it worse. So just sitting there in a dark room for like 6 months, you have a lot to think. So then you see stuff different ways. And then when I lost like my vision, I would hear things different. So then I paid attention to different sounds. So now I can like piece it together better.
Wow. So that sounds like that was a really difficult thing to go through, but it also kind of changed and shaped you in a positive way. Is your vision okay now?
Yeah, I think the funny part about it is like when people say close your eyes and walk straight, for the longest, I had to tell myself every 2 steps, lean a little bit more to the side. And if I did that, I knew like people would be like, oh, you walk straight. It's because I'm telling myself if I feel like I walk straight 2 steps, my third step, I need to step more to the side when really I'm just walking straight.
That's interesting.
Because like in my mind, when I would close like my eyes, it felt like everything was like wobbling kind of over. And I would notice my mind would shift more to the left side. So I need to go more right.
So you were compensating for that.
Yeah.
That's really interesting. I don't know. I just feel like you have some great ideas, and maybe a lot of it comes from that period in your life where you were forced to like think about things in a different way. It's kind of shaped how you think now. How old were you when that happened?
I was freshman year, so I'm 21
Okay.
now.
So maybe a freshman year of high school, so like 14ish.
Yeah, I was 14.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I was in 8th grade and 13. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, you're getting so old, man.
Yeah, my niece was born when I was in 8th grade, and she just turned 7. So like seeing her is just like wow.
Does that blow your mind?
A lot.
Yeah, that's crazy. I mean, I have two nephews. One is 3, and one is not even a year old yet. And yeah, I can't believe the one is 3. Like I feel like he was just born, and now he has a brother. Like where does the time go? It's crazy. And the older you get, the faster time moves. So my best advice for young people is try to live in the moment as much as possible, because to me that's the only way that I can feel like I'm making time slow down. When I'm not thinking about the past or the future, I'm just trying to live in the moment and appreciate what I'm doing in that moment. To me, that's the only way to feel like time can slow down. And even that's just an illusion, but it'll make you feel better.
So off of that, I said it first episode. So pretty much just acceptance is key is what I said. And based off like what you said, so you have to accept who you were. Once you accept who you were, accept where you are now. And if you can accept where you were and where you are now, you can then like find yourself in the future. Like if you want to be somewhere different, you can't do that until you accept who you were and where you are. Therefore, you can make that change. So I do agree with that as well.
I think that's good advice. I mean, you have to accept who you are now, like, and really who you are. Like, you know, life is a journey. It's a total cliche, but you know, you have to be able to be comfortable and live in your own skin, because at the end of the day, you're all you've got. So self-acceptance, self-love, and just, you know, learning from who you were in the past that made you the hopefully better person you are now. That's all just key to, I think, living a happy life.
And it's like, if you don't want to look at the past, you can literally look at it this way. Tomorrow's not promised. The next 5 seconds isn't promised. So like where you are now, what would you change? And if you can change that, what steps do you have to take? And just go ahead and start doing that now, because that can change the next 5 seconds. And even though the next 5 seconds isn't promised, you can still direct the path for the next 5 seconds. So you can kind of, instead of not knowing what's going to happen in the future, you can kind of foreshadow and make your own story.
I like that. I mean, I definitely believe that people have the power to shape their own destiny. Not completely, but in a large part. I mean, I feel like you have to make, like, a lot of where you end up in life is based on your choices. Not all of it. I mean, stuff happens in life that's beyond our control, obviously. But you also are the captain of your ship. So I feel like you got to steer it in the direction you want. You can't always just wait for life to come to you. You have to take life and grab it and be like, this is where I want to go with you.
Not only that, it's like, so the head injury, I could have been like, oh, it's a head injury. I can't see. That's it. Or you can take that and be like, okay, I have this head injury, but like, what can I do? I can listen for the sounds. Like, put someone else's focus. Say if you're a team, if I was using that in a team, okay, I can't see, you can see. Focus more on that, and I'll focus more on hearing, and you work together. And it's the same thing with your life. Like, your life is like a machine. Your body's like a machine. You have a whole routine. You set your plan for the future.
I like that. And you just also have to realize that, like, even if you make plans, it may not come out the way you wanted, but it might come out better, or it might come out, worse, but then you can build from there. So I think it's good to have a plan for life, but also be open to let, life change your plan, because sometimes you may not have a choice.
But I'm going to go ahead and wrap it up here because it's been about an hour. But it's your host, 42 the Kid, and I'm here with...
I'm Allyson Hefner from the Gaston College Writing Center.
Yep. And I'll see y'all guys next time.
Thank you. That was awesome. You're really good at this. That was fun too. If you ever need a follow-up.